This is an article that appeared in the Corryong Courier on the 14th of November 1918. It is written by one of the Corryong soldiers who is fighting in the trenches during World War I and later died of his wounds. It's titled A Pretty Rotten Shop. Dodging trench mortars kept offenders lively. It was a pretty rotten shop, wet and cold and miserable, and a couple of dead fritzes just in front of our wire did not improve it. They had been there for nearly a fortnight when we came out. This is an extract from a letter describing one phase of the March offensive sent to a Melbourne friend by Lieutenant A. Bartlett, Australian Imperial Forces, who before the war was the editor of the Corryong Courier, close to Mount Kosciuszko. He also contributed to the Bulletin over the pen name of Corryong. He says he did not last long in the big push, went out leg before to a Fritz shell on the night of March 22. We had just completed a 5-week tour of the line, continues Lieutenant Bartlett. It was a pretty hot corner, and our casualties had been fairly heavy. My sector comprised of a group of 5 shell holes posts about 300 yards in front of the line and about 60 yards from the hung line. I had 40 men altogether in the 5 posts. There was no daylight communication. We went out at night and stopped there 6 days at a time. Our rations and ammunition were brought up at night. The enemy trench mortars were our worst trouble. You can dodge machine gun and rifle fire, but the mine whiffers drop on you from the sky, and they contain 180 pounds of high explosives and make a crater big enough to burn a couple of service wagons in it. They blew out four of my 5 posts, but we were lucky. They never succeeded in hitting one in the first shot, and we were able, most of us, to crawl out of the shell holes and dodge them. Of course, getting half buried every day or two became quite a habit. We had just completed our last spin and were on our way out for a spell when a big row started. It began with a violent bombardment along the whole front, and we all had to stand to. I was put in charge of 4 strong points and took 50 men up to man them. We were shelled all the way up, but we got off the road a couple of 100 yards and worked up the flank and got in without any casualties. There was a bit of a lull then, and I got the men in and had just been around the post seeing that everything was right when the shelling started again, and I got my issue in the left leg. It was not very serious, but the piece stayed in the muscle, and I could not get about very well. It was soon fixed up, and I am having a few days light duty before moving up again. Albert Bartlett did return to Melbourne after the war, but unfortunately died of his wounds soon after. He is buried in the Corryong Cemetery.